Hi everyone, let's do some laundry and just talk. So we're currently in the cat room, which is like the room that's the catch-all for different things. And I have bags of laundry that are done that need to be folded. Perfect opportunity to talk about things. So one of the things that's just like all over the place right now is high rents. Housing should be a right. Landlords are so mean. And you have the landlords that are all grumpy about how they don't want to be dealing with, poopy tenants and stuff. And as someone that was previously a renter, and as someone that has properties, I kind of like get stuck on this where I just think and it's like, people have this whole throwaway mentality, but yet we're supposed to be a reduce, reuse, recycle type of culture, right? Well, that's all said and done. If we're such a reuse, reduce, recycle, whatever order it is, then how come we're just throwing away stuff? Like, on my way down south, on my way to Wyoming, here in the big city of Baltimore, there's plenty of houses. There's plenty of homeless people. There's plenty of people that can't afford their rent in their house for. And it's because everybody wants to get, more than they can afford, live out of their means, have a bunch of debt, all these things. And it's like, why don't we start doing more owner financing? Or, if you can't find someone to do the owner financing stuff, why don't you start a process? Oh, somehow somebody put this totally dirty thing in here. But if you're in Mississippi, why don't you try to see what's cheap in Mississippi? And even if it's not in the area that you want it to be, it's like, save your money, move into something that's super cheap. Don't think about what everybody's going to be saying or whatever. So it's like, if you have some money socked away because you have a pipe dream that you're going to eventually be able to buy a house, and you have $10,000-$15,000 saved up towards that down payment that the bank is never going to take, because they're never going to let you do a mortgage because they have whatever reasoning to not give you a mortgage, then why don't you see if in your home state, whether it's Florida, Mississippi, Texas, wherever, why don't you see if there's something that you could buy outright? Even if, hear me out, even if it's all messed up. Because I did a lot of hotel stays. We basically were like almost living out of the Trailblazer when we were in Wyoming, because we needed to stay out of the hotel room because my dad was working nights and I wanted him to be able to sleep. So if you really think about it, like if you go somewhere and you stay at a hotel or your friend's house or whatever, what are your essentials that you need? You need whatever toiletries you have. You need to be able to cook, and if they have a kitchen, then you use their services. But like, I have that little one pot cooker thing. I can pretty much cook whatever you want me to cook in there. I can't bake anything with it, but I can cook with it. So, find yourself a busted house in a busted spot and build a community. So if you have $10,000 or $15,000 saved up for a down payment, why are you being snobby paying $1,000 to $1,500 a month in rent for an area that you know, makes you feel good, but then you have no money, you're working really hard, and you're barely able, if you have children, you're barely able to spend any time with your children. Go buy a busted house. Buy a busted house and go out there and camp. Set up shop. Get the utilities turned on. Make one room. Say you have children. You know, we can play this game. You have children, and so you make one room. You pick a bedroom. You pick the bedroom that requires the least amount of work. And you go in there and you paint it. You put some good flooring down. And you pretend that you're camping. Or you pretend like you're, you know, in a studio apartment. People do it all the time. People have to live in studio apartments all the time. So that becomes your space. Like, this is one of the rooms in my house that I bought that was super busted. And I bought it outright because I got divorced, and I was like, essential thing for me is getting a roof over my head. Buy the worst house in the best neighborhood that you can afford. And so wrote out a check, and this house is mine. It's like a car payment. That's what this house is. That's what this house's overhead for me is. It's a, you know, gas and electric, it's a water bill, and it's taxes. So if push came to shove and this situation started all over again, because at some point I need to make a video about this house and where it was and where it is now at, because it still needs work. But if I had to, I could have picked this room, or I could have picked the master, which I only just recently moved into the master, just so you guys know. But clean the house, you know, move in, turn the utilities on, clean the house, and turn one room into your studio apartment for your house that you now own. And if you want to make it cool because you have children and you want to actually have a little tent and some blow-up mattresses, cool. Who cares? Because, you know, it's whatever. Get rid of all your stuff. Just get rid of all your stuff. Your stuff is going to make it where it's hard to do. And we're talking like we're finding a house that's $10,000 to $15,000 that's going to need a bunch of work. So do you want to be moving a sofa from here to there to everywhere? Do you want to spend months and months and months? Charlie is now grumpy. Okay, I'm back. Charlie got really mad at Xena because Xena was on a rug that he wanted to wrap himself in. So now he is down for a nap. Isabel was in there and she didn't understand what the problem was. Anyways, so you buy your busted house and you go over there and you clean it up. And after you've cleaned it, I'm not talking full renovation. I'm talking you find a house, because they do exist. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Go find your busted house. Sell all your stuff. You don't need it. You don't need to be moving stuff from one place to another place to another place to here and there and everywhere else. And you keep the essentials of what you need. So you say, you know what? When I stay in a hotel, I'm going to need a table for cooking. I need places to sit. There's different cultures where they don't have all the fanciful furniture that we have, okay, in the US, where they have pillows and they have a small equivalent to a coffee table, and then they sit on pillows. Boom, there's your dining room. So you have a dining room over here, and then you have some beds over here. There are a lot of people that do the family bed thing, where, like, you know, if you're a mom with a couple children, then you guys are all sleeping over there. And you set it up where you have your little dining room area, which can double as, you know, homework, stuff like that. You have your bedding area. You have, you know, maybe you get one of those air fryer things, and there's your makeshift oven, or you get a little convection oven. There's your makeshift other oven. You get the one pot cooker thing, like I have, the electric pan thing. You can cook whatever. You can make pancakes. You can make pretty much anything you need to make in that. You have water, you have power. If you don't have power when you first get it, you can hook up a generator to the house, okay? You are not having to pay rent anymore because you own it. You own it, your taxes are going to be low because it's going to be a busted house. And you now have stability of this is home. It doesn't have to be your forever home. You can fix it, flip it, and then buy a better busted house later. It doesn't matter, but you set this one room up as your station. I mean, and you go in there and you clean the bathroom. So you have a living area, like in the olden days, and you have a bathing and toiletry area with your bathroom. Don't go all cuckoo crazy with it. It's not really that complicated. Clean the rest of the house or close the doors or put some baby gates up, whatever. And now you have a home. And then you start learning how to fix it. It's not that hard. You just have to have the exposure. And I say it all the time on my channel. If you need some help with something, then ask me a question. I'll make you a video. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want this to happen. I don't want that to happen. Put some insurance on your house. Zena, stop. Buy a busted house. Sell your stuff.
Miss Michelle?
Hold on, guys. Apologies. Isabel has a friend over, and they're like, Miss Michelle. Or she's like, Miss Michelle, can we order McDonald's? I'm like, I am not an order McDonald's kind of person. You guys have pre-made salads. You have leftovers. You have lots of things available to you that are a lot more healthy than McDonald's. Anyways, people are going to make fun of this video. But, I mean, it's simple math, guys and girls and everybody out there. It's like if you are having such an issue with rent and landlords are horrible and this and that and blah, 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 go get your own piece of dirt. That's what you need to do. I mean, if you're too good to go find a busted house and go build a community, like you like small towns, guess what? Small town USA, they're dying. They're all dying. You can go find a house in small town USA for very cheap. The inspectors, when you pull permits for your houses, which I fully, want you guys to do, they will help you through the process. They do pre-inspections like, hey, I need to update this. These are my plans. I'm going to draw them out on paper. If you can do crafts, you can do this kind of house stuff. So it's, I am proposing to do this. They come out for your pre-inspection. They say, yes, no, maybe so, blah, this is what you need to do. And you say, okay. And then you do it. And then they come out for completion. Or they might have like a middle ground. Like if you need to build a deck, they're going to want to come out for the pre-inspection and see where you are proposing to dig your holes. Then after that, it's like, hey, we need to come out when you dig your footings. It is not that complicated. People for a long, long time used to just go and build their houses. They would buy a piece of land, they would set up a temporary shop, and they would build a house. For some reason, we're so fancy that we think that houses should just be given to us. No. You want something, you have to earn it. That's the whole U.S. dream, and everything else is, oh, we're going to go and do stuff. Well, you know what? Personal experience. I got divorced, and I took the little bit of money that I had, and I bought a busted house because I never wanted to have to worry about a roof over my head. I had the hope and the want that I would be fanciful enough to make it where it would be a rental property, which it has been a rental property that I have also used. And that has been able to help me every step of the way. And being in Baltimore and seeing the living conditions of a lot of people and what was going on with them, which is how I ended up with tenants and had to temporarily, basically stay in a closet, making a room out of another room, because there were people that had actual problems, like their house was condemned, or they were in a domestic violence situation, or their house was condemned was the other person, And it was like, work it out as I go along, work on things. And they paid rent, and every time I got rent, I made the house a little bit better, and I learned a little bit more. And it was a neighbors, literally helping neighbors situation to provide sustainable roofs over the heads. And eventually people become too comfortable with you and think that you're just going to do every single thing that they want you to do, or that they're going to take over your house because they think that it's their house, even though they're renting a room. And then like you have all these little things. But what I'm saying here is that, like, if you could either do it where if you're a single mom and you have a couple of children, or whether you have children or not, you're a person, whether you have little people in tow or you don't have little people in tow. If you have some money, then you can hold on to your money. And if you don't want to move out of the state that you're in, fine. Look up, just do a generic search of, houses for sale on Zillow, and then change your listing to like the lowest listing that you could afford. And if you only have a couple $1,000s, but you have a really, really good friend, then you can see if they have some more money. You can sell off the stuff that you have, your furniture, your this, your that. Hopefully you have a car. If you have a car note, you can sell your car. Buy something that, if you have a $300 car payment or a $600 car payment, and then your insurance is a couple $100 a month, and this and this and this, then you buy a cheaper car. Basically, you suck it up, Buttercup, and you make it where your overhead is really minimal, okay? Because if you have that expensive car and you say, oh, well, I really want to have my brand new Toyota Camry, even though it's costing me, hundreds of dollars a month, and oh, I'm in a rental, and like you don't own anything, okay? And with owning comes responsibility, yes. So you get rid of your newer car and you buy an older car that, has a decent amount of not a lot of miles on it, and you learn a little bit of how to maintain a vehicle. Here's a news flash for most of the people out there. It is not that hard to take care of a vehicle properly, okay? Fluids, belts, hoses, change out of parts. It is not that difficult. It just requires trying to care about something. And for some reason, most of the people out here only care about themselves. Just saying. So, you buy a used car if you have a high car note. That way you own it outright, and your only expense that you have is registration, insurance, emissions if you have that, and inspection, okay? It becomes a minimal expense. No, you're not going to be the most fanciful person out there. You're not going to be this little floofy butterfly that's trying to prove that they're so awesome because they're so in debt that they can't even see straight. But you own it. No one can take it away. If you don't have a job, you still have it. And hopefully you have set up a thing where you have 3 months of expenses allotted. Okay? So get rid of your big car note. You're in an expensive place. Either you move into a smaller place. If you're a single person, go rent a room somewhere. If you have parents that you can fall back on and live at their house because they love you so much, and they're going to drive you cuckoo crazy, but you can save all the monies for rent and stuff like that, go do that. Okay? If you have children and your parents would allow for you to do that, and you guys got to bunker down for, X amount of time to be able to save up the money to go buy your little busted house, minimalize your lifestyle so that you can maximize your livelihood, your life, build generational wealth, okay? Do that. So you find you downsize on your car note stuff, you downsize on your housing stuff. Some people are just van packing it up. You buy a van, buy a minivan. You guys live in the minivan. I don't care. You save your money, you sell all your crap, because putting all your stuff in storage is such a stupid idea, because then you're incurring an additional expense. And then where are you gonna put your stuff? And unless we're talking heirlooms and stuff like that, which most of the people out there don't have, what's your fire list? If there was a fire today, what would you take out of your house? Is it stuff that's hidden away? You're gonna be toting your canopy bed? No. You're gonna be grabbing your children, your animals, some pictures that you might have, or you might just leave everything. You know, unless you have children and animals, you won't leave them. But you might just say, you know what, I don't care. So play a little mental game where it's, if my house was burning down, what would I take with me? Or if there was a hurricane coming, what would I take with me? Because that's my experience is hurricanes. And everything outside of that, sell that crap. And I'm not talking from not having personal experience in this. Unfortunately, I got to a point where I had to sell all my stuff because I had a lot of stuff. I had a lot of stuff that I really, really cared about. But I knew that I didn't have anywhere to stick it because I didn't have this house yet. And I was in this point of not knowing what was going to happen with my life. And all I knew is that I needed to downsize because it made no sense to, you know, rent a bunch of storage units for stuff that I had nowhere to stick it. So I sold all my stuff, and I'm still very bitter and upset about that. But that's what I did. And this house is just kind of hodgepodge put together. Is that, like, anyone that would have known me before this house would have been like, I can't believe that that's Michelle's house. Well, you know what? Michelle's priorities changed. I went from thinking I had to have like everything perfect and pretty, and I had the big house. I had, you know, 2 businesses, 2 very successful businesses. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life, and then my life blew up. It did. And priorities changed. And at the end of the day, the biggest priority in my life is my children. It's always been. And so it was, hey, I need stability. I need a roof over our heads, because whether there's a guy in my life or not, I have to be able to take care of my babies. And so sold off all my stuff, made some money to be able to survive, got divorced. Once that was done, went around looking at all the busted houses in Baltimore. I had to see some very interesting things. Got to realize that I've had an amazing life, even though it's been really hard. It's been really good. And that's the other thing too, is when you start looking at these different houses, imagine the people who are living in these houses. Imagine the people live in houses that should have been condemned. And those are the lucky people, because they actually have a roof over their heads. You ever want to appreciate your life? Go to a big city and look at the homeless population. People forget about them. They don't realize that, like, everything that homeless person has is on their back or in a shopping cart. They're lucky if they have a tent. There's a lot of stuff. So, just saying, you know, most people in America are incredibly fortunate, no matter what situation they're in. If you guys just want to hear me ramble about, like, you know, how you should appreciate your life and how you should go find a busted house, then, you know, and then make fun of me in the end, go for it. But it's a practice what you preach thing. This house is mine. So whether my husband and I part ways tomorrow or we don't, he knows and I know that this is my backup plan. It is. And I spend a lot of time here, and, you know, fortunately for me, it is very close to one of the best hospitals in the country, if not the world. And so this house has more than paid for itself in my initial investment, or investiture, from renting out rooms, from being cheaper than hotels and gas and everything else, with bringing my son back and forth to appointments and everything like that. And it offers me a lot of stability. So for the majority of its life, because it was supposed to be a rental property, and then I just needed to feel grounded because I complain a lot about my husband's house. For a good chunk of this house's life, it was like, it was a rental where it was like, okay, I need to make it good because I have people living here, you know, because I wanted to move like a person in, because this was supposed to be my crash out house when I was working on properties in Baltimore. And then that very quickly evolved to I didn't have enough room in the house, because this room was occupied, the master was occupied, the little room was occupied, the now shop at, which was Miss Mary's new room. This was Miss Mary's old room. Like, basically, I talked to a couple people just to have a person move in, and then I had 3 people move in, and then I still needed a place for me and my then boyfriend at the time and my daughter whenever we came into town to work on stuff. And so we were like all huddled up because all the rooms were occupied. And it was like this big dysfunctional family, and it made me feel good. And like we did dinners and stuff like that, and we would, you know, for holidays I would cook here because it was my house and my husband has gas stove, and I preferred to cook over here, and I preferred to provide food to them, and it was just, it wasn't perfect all the time, but it was fun. And then, you know, Mr. John passed away, and then his brother moved away because, you know, his brother had passed away. And then Miss Mary was here for a while, and then I kept having people, you know, here and there trying to rent rooms, and then I did rent out the rooms, and then that kind of blew up in my face. And then eventually, with this latest thing with Miss Mary and being burned by her, just like, you know what, I want this house to be my house for me and my children and the dogs and the cats, and I'll just put a shopette in it so it's still a business expense because, you know, selling cupcakes and cookies and cottage kitchen stuff works pretty well. And snowballs and popcorn. Is it really profitable? No. Do I have the intent on making it more profitable? Yes. So a business in my home. So it's still a business expense. So, and I mean, that's the other thing too, is like, if you're going to go on this whole like little debacle of trying to do your stuff, make a YouTube channel. Because then you have the intent to monetize. So then, you know, you get some business expenses out of it. Like, there's so many different ways to live your best life if you just work and try. Just saying. So if you are unhappy with your life and you work at Walmart, Waffle House, McDonald's, somewhere that has stuff other places, or if you're a work from home person, oh my goodness, if you're a work from home person, why are you staying where you're staying? If you're unhappy with your rent, or if you're unhappy with how expensive things are, or if you're unhappy with whatever. If you want to go live in the mountains, sell your crap, get one of those new Tesla satellite Wi-Fi whatever things, find yourself a little piece of dirt. My goodness, it makes no sense to me when I see all of these brand new this and that and all these things being built in Baltimore when there's like tons of crumbling houses. Fix the houses. We're throwaway culture. Oh, I'm tired of my husband. I'm going to divorce him. Throwaway culture. Oh, I'm tired of my wife. I'm going to divorce her. Throwaway culture. Oh, this car needs a new alternator. Might as well buy a new one. Throwaway culture. A couple $100 for an alternator, and or you go and buy another thing, because there's this common misnomer which really just makes me mad, where it's like, oh well, once you start having a problem here, you're gonna start having a ton of other problems there, and everything's gonna be breaking down. Or it's an alternator, and you have aftermarket speakers, so you took more out of it, or you're constantly running a charge on it, or something happened with it. Why are you going to buy a whole new car over an alternator? Just saying. I'm a fix-it kind of person. So I name myself Michelle Fix-It on here. So, you know, right now I am trying to restabilize my life. I have houses that are down. You know, I keep talking about that. I had a wonderful like semi-vacation going down to Mississippi, which wasn't really a vacation because it was like this whole big thing. And then I went to Wyoming because, you know, we haven't done anything like that in quite a long time. And now it's get back to work. And it's just really frustrating because it's not like, I mean, I was taught work ethic and stuff like that, but I mean, it's research. If you're a really smart person and people pay you lots of monies for your skills, you can be a really smart person and learn how to work on your own house. If you don't think that you're a smart person, but for some reason, like when you work at McDonald's, you have learned all the cook prep time and everything else for all the things that you're making at McDonald's, and guess what? You can learn about the other stuff to put a house together. And you know what? If you make a boo-boo, it's your house. Who's going to yell at you? You? And if you're doing something where it could be super dangerous and you're really concerned, send me a video. I will offer assistance. Thinking about trying to do like a virtual handy woman thing where it's like if you're working on a project and you don't have the time to research, I've got a lot of experience on a lot of different things. So you can be like, hey, Michelle, fix it. I want to do a Skype thing because at the end of the day, I need to make monies too. But it's like, you send me X amount of money and that guarantees an hour of my time or whatever. And then we do a Skype session like this where I'm like, you show me the stuff. I'm like, okay, zoom in. Okay, that means this. Okay, so you need to do you have these tools? Okay, well, you need to do this and you need to do that and blah, blah, blah. Because I can be your little call person. You can call me for projects. I'll be your project call girl. I don't mind. It's fun. And if you learn stuff, it's great. Because I have done that. I have helped people with their houses, not just the rentals here. So people have paid me for that, and then I've been a subcontractor, which is very obnoxious because then people are making money off of my time, and I don't want to be a subcontractor again. But legitimately, I have children and stuff, but it's like as long as you don't mind hearing Xena barking her head off, and Izzy and Charlie doing whatever, then it's like, okay, you have a leak here. You need to find out where your water source is. Take me to where your thing is. Okay, you don't know where your thing is. Da, 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 da. Am I going to be cheaper than calling a plumber and waiting hours for the plumber to come in? Yes. Are you allowed to try to shut off your water in the event of an emergency? Yes. I mean, there's a lot of times where I've helped people over the phone, and I think that's that's going to be a pretty good little business opportunity. If you guys bite, you bite. But if you don't, take the advice. Consolidate your life and go buy your own piece of dirt. Just do it. I mean, I don't. The second that I had money available and because I had been consolidating all of my life for my businesses and stuff like that, and it just so happened that it was like I was selling off all of my daycare stuff, and a realtor was starting into the daycare business, and she was like, well, why are you selling all your stuff? I was like, my life blew up and I'm moving back home because houses and everything are cheaper down south. And she's like, go to Baltimore. I was like, Baltimore's a big city, it's going to be super expensive. She's like, no, go to Baltimore. Baltimore has really cheap houses, like exceptionally cheap houses. And so before I had any money in my pocket, I took a friend here or there and got to see what the auction stuff was about. Got to walk through the houses, got to realize that holy crap, their houses, well, at the time, their house was for like $5,000 for sale. Holy crap. And my time, my labor is free for me. So then it was just like, there were a lot of different houses that I just couldn't jump on because I didn't have any money. And then so once I had money, and it was big and scary to get fully invested in a home, but once I had the money, everybody started pressuring me. They're like, you said you're going to buy a house. You said you were going to buy a house. Gerbacatus. So I was very pressured whenever I finally got to the point of having money in my pocket, and I didn't want to make a rush decision. And I just kind of fell in love with this house because it was big enough for anything that I needed to do. And I knew that people had been living in it. Like, it's sad when I think about it in retrospect because I need to show you guys the pictures, but this house was a very unkempt, fend for yourself as tenants rental house for like 30-40 years. The rent was minimal. The house, they were just kind of trying to keep it together, but grandparents rented the house, and then they had their children, and then their children, they had the grandparents here, they had the parents, the mom here, and then the grandchildren here. And it's just very interesting to me because when you guys see the pictures, the conditions that they had to live with because they didn't have anything anything else. This was home. And then they had a relative buy the house from the people that owned it in New York, and then that didn't work out very well. But I mean, so people were living in it. It was occupied up until right before I got it. They moved out. They found a different house because it got sold at a tax sale and stuff like that. And I got to meet the people, and it was really cool. And, you know, I saved pictures and I gave pictures because there were some things that were very, you know, important documentation and stuff. So whenever the guy ended up showing up, one of the grandkids, I was like, here's your stuff. And it's been a learning experience. And sometimes, like, in the process of it, I was embarrassed. And I was like, oh, my busted house. And there's been a lot of growth in this house because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how busted it is. And, like, people, like, when I tried to help someone and let them rent a room for me and they didn't pay rent, then I had to go through the formal eviction process, and they were like harassing me, and like it went from, you know, super nice guy to like, I don't know what happened to him, something happened to him, and like criminal charges and all this other stuff. And he was like, your house, you need to do this, and like your house should be condemned. It's like, should it really be condemned? Because you're complaining about aesthetics. You are complaining about an aesthetic problem. You're trying to make it seem like because my house is not perfect and you were literally sleeping in your car because you didn't have anywhere else to go, that you and your situation is better than me and my situation, when I actually own something. Like, you're in a vehicle that is about to get repossessed because you can't afford to pay for it. And you're making fun of my home ownership. Because my house has never been unsafe. It's been not cute. But if you end up buying a busted house, you take care of health, safety, sanitation first. You know where your problematic areas are. You research stuff. If you need me to make a video on that, I'll let you know. So if you need to know about lead paint, asbestos, mold, mildew, VOCs, you make sure that you have, I have fire extinguishers on every level. I have gas meters in the basement because that's where my gas is. I have carbon monoxide detectors, smoke alarms that are all interlinked together. When it comes to health, safety, sanitation, you take care of your stuff, period. You know where your hazards are, you know where your health stuff is, you know what the age ranges are and the susceptibility to different things. I didn't know about the VOCs until recently. Turns out Patterson had some VOCs, some bad VOCs. So, you know, now working on mitigation for that. Because if you don't know about a potential hazard, then you can't fix it. And then I didn't know about radon until Upland, so I had to learn about that. Speaking of which, I still haven't checked the radon for here. I need to do that. But if you need a whole house video on how to take your busted house from being a busted house to being a good house, don't turn into one of those little influencer people where you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this. Make one room your studio apartment, less bathing and toiletry stuff. So you make this room good for you and your family, or if it's just you, great, makes your life a lot easier. Make this room your room where it meets all of your needs. So at the end of the day, you are not living in a project. You have a studio apartment in a home that you own. So after you take your bath or your shower and you come in here, this room is perfect as a studio apartment. People do it all the time. They live in hotels, they live in cars. You turn one room into something good. The whole rest of the house can be all busted. You make sure you have heat, you make sure you have air conditioning. You can buy a window unit to be sufficient for those things. If your window needs to be changed out, guess what? You learn how to put a window in, and then you put, you get what? If you don't have heat and air and everything else, but you really should make sure you have heat because heat can bust pipes. But if it's an air thing, then you pop a little heat, or you have a radiator heater. So you get a window unit, you have a radiator heater, the little plug-in ones, they radiate heat, they're great. You make sure that the rest of the house has heat if you're in a place that pipes can freeze and stuff like that. But you temperature control and make this room your studio apartment. And then you say, you know what, next weekend, I'm going to work on making another room. Or the kitchen, having a real kitchen would be a great priority for me. Are you going to appreciate that kitchen? If you go from having a one pot kitchen life in this room as your studio apartment in the home that you own, are you going to appreciate that kitchen once it's done? Yes, absolutely. Can you take your time at it? Yes, absolutely. Because you have a studio apartment in the home that you own. I don't care how many children you have. You can all bunker down. They used to do it in the old days. And you know, it's not like everybody doesn't have stupid devices right now anyways. And you get your children in on the action. You isolate, figure out where your potential hazards are and stuff like that, and you get your children in on it. That's ridiculous. Bunker down. Set up a room. Make a studio apartment in your house that you own. It's common sense. It's very frustrating because, you know, my thing has always been like, I can be happy doing whatever, wherever. And all this, I'm too good for this and I'm too good for that. Oh, I would never live there. Well, then you're never going to own anything. You're always going to be paying someone else for the wealth that they've acquired. I mean, I hope that when I talk to an attorney about the owner financing stuff, that'll, you know, work out with the structure that I want it to. I feel like it should, because then I can actually start helping other people do that. Maybe somebody on the YouTube channel, you know, that's nearby, be like, oh, I'd love to do that. But I mean, I would have already done all the work for you. But if you're starting off by yourself, everybody's complaining, but they want somebody else to do the work for them. Being someone from a situation where I see it, like my mom did it. She did it a different way. She was brilliant. She knew that she needed a roof over her head for her and her kittens. And so she used her tax money to buy a trailer. And then we stayed at the babysitter's house, and she went over there and she cleaned it and she did this and she did that, and she paid someone to move it to the little trailer park, and then all she had was lot rent, but she owned a trailer. And so that made it where her overhead was less. And then, you know, when we got older and we were a little bit more snooty and this and that because of the area that we were living in, she worked another job in addition to her full-time teaching job so that we could afford a house. And we were little snots about it. And so as soon as that lease was up, we went right back to the trailer. I mean, we lived in other places as well. Like we lived at Mr. Marty's house. But when we went from Mr. Marty's house, we went into the house, and because she didn't want us to have a deduction in her standard of living. And that was her being an amazing mom, but that was us being little jerks. That's what it is. So if your children are too snotty, or you're too snotty to go out and buy a little busted house and build some equity, build some sweat equity, and like learn to work and make it fun, because like children, you can do anything with children, make it fun. And that'll build a community too. Like, why do you think there are work retreats or like family camping excursions to build team building and stuff like that? Because when you're all working on a team, it's like you're a big family. And if you literally are a big family and you all start working together on something, you're going to end up getting really bonded. It's going to build a relationship with the people in the family and all that. But no, people just want to do whatever they want to do. I don't know. It's up to you guys. I'll just be here doing laundry, working on little busted houses, making them pretty again. Hopefully to make it where I can have some like pride and ownership people, instead of these tenants that are like, oh, I'm just gonna wreck it and then like complain about it and like slumlord, blah 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 blah. Because I'm over it. Over people not doing what they're supposed to do. That's it. So you guys have a fantastic day. I'm waiting for this to time out. And clearly you guys like Xena. So like Xena's going to end up having a lot more videos and stuff. And Gabby. I'm going to be like bringing one of them over to the house while I'm working on it. But you guys have a fantastic day. If you enjoyed my rambling, please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about how to get a house, please tell me or ask me. Bye.